Vav. We're going to begin. We're going to begin from Samach Hey Amid Sheni, about 6 lines from the bottom. 6 lines from the bottom. Ela Gezera Mishim Shechatas Avra Shanasa. What we're talking about over here is a very interesting question. The question was, we have an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda who says that if you gave shkolim, if you double gave shkolim 1 year, for whatever reason, it was stolen, and then you had to re-give your shkolim, and then the money was returned. So Beis Hamikdash has two sets of shkolim from you. So the Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't have to pay for the following year. It's almost like as if you're paid your shul membership twice by accident. So the next year they don't have to bill you. That was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Chachamim disagreed, and they said, no, each year that's too bad on you, but you have to repay again in new shekels. But Rabbi Yehuda says you don't. So the Gemara asks, if that's the case, the Gemara says, but Rabbi Yehuda made a statement that if the par v'so'ir shel Yom Kippurim, if they by accident chose 2 par v'so'ir shel Yom Kippurim, how's that possible? During the Yom Kippur service, the cow walked out and the goat walked out, and they had to choose another set to take the place. And then they found the original par v'so'ir. So Rabbi Yehuda says, don't keep it till next year, kill it. So the question is, why kill it? Why kill this animal? You use it the following Yom Kippur. That was the question of the Gemara, and it's a fascinating question. It's an animal rights Gemara over here. Why are they killing this cow? So the Gemara says, 5 lines from the bottom, what was the reason? L'shum Elo, the Gemara says, Gezera Mishum Chatash of Rosh Hashanah. We are concerned that the sa'ir has to be under a year old. The goat has to be under a year old. And if you wait till next year, it's going to be over a year. So it's going to be possible to be brought as a carbon. So the Gemara asks, Zera, that's a gezera? That's not the right term. It's not a gezera. It's an actual thing that the chatas by Yom Kippur next year, it's certainly going to be over a year old, a year past. How's that possible that a year would not pass to the next Yom Kippur? So the Gemara says, Holoi Kash, it's not a question. Ki Rabbi. Our Mishnah goes like Rabbi. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa, Shana Tamima, Moina Shalosh Meas Vishishim Kamishin Yom Kaminya Moisachama de Rebbe. Rebbe holds when the Torah says by Botei Arechoima, it always works with the solar calendar, 365 days. And therefore, so you can see that from Yom Kippur to Yom Kippur is only, let's say we go with the lunar calendar, so it's only 354 days. But to be called the animal to be called a year old, the only way the animal is a year old, only if it's the solar year, 365 days passed since the animal was born. So according to Rebbe, it's possible by next Yom Kippur, the goat is not year old, only 354 days passed for the goat. So it's not a year old. So therefore, even though technically you could reuse the carbon the following year, but we put the goat to death because maybe 1 year you're going to use a goat that actually is going to be a year old by the next Yom Kippur, and therefore, if it's going to be a year old by the next Yom Kippur, it's unusable. So that's a gezerah because you might use a goat that's over a year old. You always use the lunar calendar. So according to Chachamim, it's impossible to have this situation because you're always counting the years of an animal from the lunar months. Let's go to the following page. Okay. Okay. Now we go to Daf Samach Vav Amud Aleph. We're going to Samach Vav Amud Aleph, and we are at the part. Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. I'll just get my Gemara up. Okay, so here we are up on the top of the page on Daf Samach Vav Amud Aleph. So okay, so the Gemara says. So you answer to me that the reason why you don't use the goat The Gemara answered that the reason why you don't use goat is because you're afraid that maybe it'll be a year old by the following year. So the Gemara says, that answers the goat, why you put the goat to death. Why do you put the cow to death? That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, Gezerah par otusar. We put the cow to death because of the sa'ir, because we want to put the goat to death. Because the goat, we are concerned that maybe you're going to use a goat that's over a year old. So the Gemara says, Umishum Gezerah Yamus. Is it because of the Gezerah you're going to kill the cow? I mean, leave the cow alive and just kill the goat. A chatas that's a year old, you put it, you don't kill it, you let it pasture, and then you sell the animal after it gets a blemish. You don't have to kill it and not use it. A chatas that became a year old, now you can't use it. We see that we compare it as if it's standing in a cemetery, which you can't get next to it. A coin can't grab it, and varaya, and you let it graze, and when it gets a mum, you sell it and use the money to buy another chatas. So, in the Gemara's question is again, why did they kill the goat? So Gemara says, and why, even if they were going to kill the goat, why kill the cow? So that's the Gemara's question. Ella Amarava. I'm sorry, I'm having just a small difficulty. Hold on. There's my Gemara here. Hold on. Okay. Ella Maravim Gzera Mishum Takala, right over here. Gzera is because of a problem with that you might use it prior to the Yom Kippur. The reason why you're supposed to kill the goat, the extra goat and cow, is because of Gzera, because you might use it prior to its time. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah, Ein Magdishin, you're not allowed to make a hegdish bisman hazeh. If someone says he's very excited about the base of Migdash and says, I'm making something hegdish, I'm making my animal hegdish bisman hazeh, right? You're not supposed to do that. You're not allowed to do erichin. You're not allowed to make gifts to the Kohen bisman hazeh. Because again, you're going to leave it in your house, Mashiach didn't come, and then you're going to use it. And then it's called moil behegdish. So if you're going to do that, behema te'aker, the behema, we're going to uproot it, and that means you try to kill it. Peris ksus v'kalim, if you made a hegdish of fruits, clothing, and vessels, yirkavu, let them rot. If you made a donation of money to the base of Mikdash, bizman hazeh, or you made a donation of a silver keli, a metal keli, you throw it, you paid it, or you throw the whole thing into the Yamamelech. And the Ezehu Ikor, and what is the Ikor? What is called when you donate a behema, you ikir the behema, you put it in a pen and you close the door and it dies. So what the Gemara is saying over here, that for the extra parva sa'ir that was left over from one Yom Kippur to the next, the Gemara says the reason why we kill it and don't use it for the following Yom Kippur is because the gezerah is that you might use it during the year for something else. So the Gemara says, Takala demai. Why would you? What are you afraid of? Takala dakarova. Are you afraid that you're going to use it for another carbon, not for the Yom Kippur carbon, but during the year you're going to use it for any other type of carbon? I feel a kol nami. Then every animal that has a problem, we should kill it because we are afraid that you're going to use it for a carbon. Are you afraid that you're going to use the sharings and work with the animal? I feel a kol nami. Even any other animal that has a problem. In other words, any other animal that you had a double of, we should require you to kill it. And that the halacha is not so. The halacha is that you let it graze, and then and then you could sell it and use the money. So why is it that the parvasar was so strict that we actually have to kill it? So the Gemara says, "La'olam takala dekrava." We're always afraid that if you left the parvasar from one Yom Kippur to the next, you might use it during the years and as a carbon, and therefore, because you're waiting for next year to reuse it as a carbon. The others cases that you mentioned that you're not afraid that you're going to use it, since you're not thinking about being makravit loy tarabahu. You're not thinking about it. You won't come to make that kind of a mistake because it's an animal that you already were yaitza with, and therefore you let it out to pasture, and then you could wait till it has a moon. Bahach, the bas hakravihi, this one has a hakrava. In other words, you're technically could bring it as a carbon, and that you're waiting it till next year to bring it as a carbon to tarabah. You're busy with it, and we are afraid that you're going to make a mistake and what? And use it. So the Gemara says, that to be cautious whether animal will be used as, and you'll make a mistake and we use it during the year, is a machlekes tanoim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Pesach shaloi karbarishin. You have a carbon Pesach, and for some reason you didn't use it the first time. Whatever, you were yoitza with somebody else, and you have an extra carbon Pesach that you didn't use, yikra b'sheni, you could use it next year. B'sheni, if you missed next year, keep it around. Your karv l'shana haba, you could bring it to the following year. The Tanya idach lo yikrav, you can't use it for the next year. My love, don't you mean? But the kala pligi. Why does one Tana says you could use it for next year, and one Tana says you can't use it for next year? The answer is that's a machlokes, whether you are choishes that maybe the guy, if you allow a guy to keep it from 1 year to the next, he might misuse it and use it for something else, and not for a carbon pesach. That's why the other Tana says lo yikrav, you shouldn't use it. So the Gemara says lo, the kuli amal chashin l'tekala. We're lo chashin into tekala. They're not concerned about using it. The question is, this is the machlokes between Rebbe and Rabbanim, whether it's possible that a carbon Pesach, after you wait a year, is still under a year old, because a carbon Pesach is supposed to be under a year old. So according to Rabbanim, that's an impossibility. Once you reach one Pesach to the next, the animal, as long as 12 lunar months pass, the animal's a year old. But according to Rebbe, the animal doesn't turn a year old until the solar months pass, then it's possible to have it. You could save a carbon from 1 year to the next. So that's why one brisa says the Pesach you can save from 1 year to the next, and one brisa says the Pesach cannot be saved 1 year next. So the Gemara says, okay, v'hatanya, but when we have a brisa that says v'chein hamo'os, money you're allowed to keep from 1 year to the next. And then there's the same machlokes. One brisa says money.
Your volume went away.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay, do you hear me now? Do you hear? Do you hear now?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're getting up to this new Mishnah and everything will fly. Okay, so the Gemara says, Elalav shmamina betakola pligi shmamina. From this brisa, this last brisa, it tells you that there's a machlokes brises whether you're allowed to keep money or animals from 1 year to the next, because monies, there's no problem, there's no chashash of a year old. So why does one brisa says you could keep the money from 1 year to the next, and one brisa says you have to get rid of the money? The question is whether you say that you're choishes that the guy is going to by accident use the money and be moil with the money, use it for non-kedushin purposes. He's not going to wait till next year. And one brisa says you're not choishes for the kol, and you can keep it for next year. Anyway, what the point of the brisa, what we just ended by the Mishnah, all you have to remember is like this: a par v'sa'ir of Yom Kippurim. They have an extra one. How is it possible they had an extra one? Is because they brought another par v'sa'ir, because this one got lost on Yom Kippur and you found it after Yom Kippur. So now you have a par v'sa'ir sheyom Kippurim. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda, who normally says you should keep things from 1 year to the next, he would not have a problem with you using this par v'sa'ir next year for next year's Yom Kippur. He says you put it to death. And the reason is because we are afraid of takala. What is takala? We might, during the year, you might, instead of waiting for Yom Kippur, use it for something else. So therefore, and that would be a psul or an avera. Therefore, we put it to death right away. Next, back to the service of Yom Kippur. After the service of after the service of the bloods on the spilling on the Yesod of the Mizbeach, the Kohen Gadol went to the Sa'ir HaMishtalech, was standing by the Shar Niknor, and the goat that's supposed to be sent away. He puts his two hands on it and says the vidu, Honor Hashem, please God, and with the Shem Hamafirish. Chatu avu pashu. They sinned. They did an avera by accident on b'mezid pashu. They were negligent. L'fanecha amcha beis Yisrael. The whole Jewish people. Ona Hashem, please God. Kapano lachantoim v'lavoinus v'lapshoim shechatu v'she'avu v'shepashu l'fanecha amcha beis Yisrael. Kakos b'saris Moshe avdecha ki b'yom ezay chapar lechem v'tar eschem mikol chateisechem l'fnei Hashem kitoro. So basically, he went to Soya Mishaleach and made a vidui on it. That's all. This is the main service. If you ask somebody, where on Yom Kippur do the Jewish people, all the Jewish people get a kapara from all the averis that they did through the year, it's the vidui that is said on the Sa'ir HaMishtalech. The other korban, the other goat, was only mechaper on Tumas Migdash Ukadashav, an avera of doing of going betuma and doing a service betuma in the Beis HaMikdash. But this is the main Sa'ir that actually brought about atonement for all the averos that the Jewish people did throughout the year.
Then wasn't it just Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that the vidui was, and then there was a machlokas if it wasn't the dam that was the final kapara, or is that everyone agreed?
Excellent. The machlokes was excellent, very good. The Gemara is going to speak about it. Rabbi Shimon held that the kahanim didn't need the soya mishtalech. The kahanim got their kapara with the Kohen Gadol's par. So they're not included in this Amcha Beis Yisrael. That's what the Gemara is going to attempt to say that. Very good. But Gans Klal Yisrael got the kapara through this. Kahana ba'am I'm the bazara kashaya shaimim shema mapirish yaitim pia Kohen Gadol hayikorim mishtachmim v'noifel apneim va'imrim Baruch Shem Kavod Machusai Leilam Boed. They would say, yeah.
I only boiled a quarter of the box, and then of the quarter of the box, I only gave you.
They would. Oh, sorry. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah. But Kahana v'am the the barzar k'shal yishem shem first yoitzim pia Kohen Gadol yikarim mishtachavim umanif nal pnei v'im brok shem kvay makusay leilam boed. When they heard the Kohen Gadol say the Shem HaMafarish, they would get on their knees and say Baruch Shem Kvod Malkusay Leilam Boed. Next, Masori Lami Shahoyam Alichai. They gave the animal to the person that was designated to carry the animal. Everybody was permitted to carry this animal. They made a rule. The Kahanim said, the Jewish, they didn't use a Yisrael, they used a kohen to take the animal to that mountain of Azazel. They didn't use technically they could have used the Yisrael, but they did not. Amar Rabbi Yossi, I guess because they wanted the Jewish people to feel that the Kahanim care about their kapara. So even something that technically could be done by any Jew, the Kahanim made a law that they're going to be only sending somebody who's a kohen to throw it off the mountain. There was Arsala was a Jew, and he was the one designated to throw the goat off the mountain. So Rabbi Yossi just says a proof that it could be any Jew. The Kevis also line. Look at here. And they made a ramp as they're bringing this animal out of the base of the Migdash. Why? There were Bavlim, people from Bavel who came for Yom Kippur to Eretz Yisrael, and they were in the crowds. As Shemetalshim Basari, they would rip the hair out of the head of the guy who's leading the animal, because maybe he was going too slow. And they would tell him, Tol say, take the animal and get out of here, because we want a kapara already, and you're delaying, you're taking your time. So they made a ram so nobody could touch him. It's amazing how severe the crowd can get. So the Gemara says, and this is what Sheldon was pointing out, that the ilu b'nei haram the Mishnah doesn't say that the Kahanim get a kapara with this animal. The Mishnah only says that the Jews, Mantana, Rabbi Yehuda, it's not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, if our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'amar, he said, Yesh lem kapara b'sayim mishtaleach. Rabbi Yehuda was the one that said that the Kahanim get a kapara with the sayim mishtaleach. And our Mishnah only implies that Yisraelim get a kapara, not Kahanim. So Amar Abaya says, Afila Tem Rabbi Yehuda. You can even say our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. So, and our Mishnah means Ato Kahanim Lav V'Klal Am Yisrael Ninu. Our Kahanim considered part of Am Yisrael. So our Mishnah is not a proof. It could be that our Mishnah holds that the Sari Mishlech was also Mechaper on Kahanim, the same way according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But again, according to Rabbi Shimon, the Kahanim did not get a kapara with the Sari Mishlech. They got a kapara with the par of the Kohen Gadol. Anyway, the Mishnah continued and said, Masari Lamisha Balichai. The Mishnah said that you gave the animal to the person that was carrying it. The Tanrabanim. The pasuk says that you gave it to a Kohen Gadol. That you gave it to a person to carry it out. Ish lahachshir sazar. That any person is kosher to carry the animal. It doesn't have to be a kohen because it's not a service. The Parish says et. You give it to a guy who's et. Et means he was designated. What does that mean? Et means shehei mezuman. He has to be prepared. It means you have to designate the person. You can't decide who's going to do the job. It had to be Erev Yom Kippur. They had to decide. Itu v'afilu b'Shabbos. This iti means that this person has a right to be mechal Shabbos. Itu v'afilu b'tumah. This person iti means that he's designated and he could go into the Beis Hamikdash b'tumah to pick up the animal. So the Gemara darshans this brisa. Ish lahachshir zar, that a zar is permitted to be the one designated to throw the animal off. So the Gemara says pshita. Of course, why would I think not so? I would have thought that what? That the Torah says that this brings atonement. So I would think that only a kohen is allowed to do the job. Kamash Malan, that it could be any Yisrael could do the job. Again, the Mishnah said that they specifically wanted a kohen to do the job, but min Torah, anybody could do the job. Iti b'afilu b'Shabbos. L'may hilchasa. What halacha do you learn that this guy could carry Shabbos? Because really, what kind of chilul Shabbos is he going to do? He's walking. Tchumen maybe not the Eraisa, and the animal's walking with him, so he's not carrying anything. So Omar Rav Sheshes said, Loimar, this is a halacha. Shim hoyachoila. If the animal was sick, markivoy al kaseifoy, he could put the animal on his shoulders. So there he would be carrying. He would be permitted to be mechalul Shabbos. So it's a good riddle to ask yourself. Where is a case for one person in Klal Yisrael who's not doing pekuach nefesh work, permitted to be mechalul Shabbos? And there is the answer. The answer is this ish iti. He's allowed to carry the animal if the animal was sick, to throw it off the mountain on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, "Command like Rav Nosson." Our Mishnah is not like Rav Nosson. This price is not like Rav Nosson. The Rav Nosson said, "Oy mechai noisei es atzmoi." He said that even if you carried an animal, it's not a daraisa, because a live thing is carrying itself. In other words, you're not carrying. If you carry something that's alive, you're not being mechal Shabbos. Gemara says, "Afilu teim Rav Nosson." Our Mishnah could go according to Rav Nosson. Cholo shani, that a sick person, the sick animal, is considered carrying, even according to Rav Nosson, because then he's not carrying himself, you're carrying it. And therefore, this ish iti would be mechal Shabbos by carrying this animal. Amar Rafam said, Zoy Semeris. From here we see Erev v'Haitzol the Shabbos, vein Erev v'Haitzol Yom Kippurim. There's no problem of Erev and Haitzol on Yom Kippur. Since we had to tell you that iti is afilu b'Shabbos, why did you say iti afilu Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur you're not allowed to carry. So why did it say Yemechal Yom Shabbos? Yemechal, if in case Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, wait a second, just Yom Kippur alone you're not allowed to carry. So this brisa holds that Yom Kippur you are allowed to carry. We don't paskin like this brisa, but we paskin that even Yom Kippur you're not allowed to carry. But this brisa held Yom Kippur you would be permitted to carry. If it fell out on Shabbos, then we give the heter to the person designated to carry the animal. But iti vafilu betuma. That iti means even with tumal. My hilkaso amar Rav Sheshes loimer teaches you shemnitma mishalchay nichnas tami lazar mishalchay. If the man, the iti, the designated person, got tuma, he's allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash and have the kohen send him pick up the animal. Apparently, the kohen gadol could not leave the Beis Hamikdash, so each iti had to go into the Beis Hamikdash, whereby the kohen gadol sent them off to the Azazel. So the Mishnah, the Brisa teaches you that if each iti, this designated person was Tommy, he's permitted to enter the Beis Hamikdash to pick up the animal. The Gemara asks a few questions, and this will end. Shalu asked Rabbi Eliezer. They asked a question to Rabbi Eliezer. And now they asked questions to Rabbi Eliezer, and the Rabbi Eliezer is not going to answer these questions directly, because not that he didn't know the answer, he just couldn't quote his rabbis directly, and when he didn't have a direct quote from his teachers, he never would answer the question. The question was, if the animal got sick, can you put the animal on its shoulders? Amalehem, so he said, like a deflective answer. This animal could carry me and you on them. But he didn't answer the question. But then they asked him, if the ish iti became sick, can you put another person to designate him? Can you have a replacement? Let's say the ish iti became sick. You and I should be peace. We should never get sick. That doesn't answer the question. Then they asked the Rabbi Eliezer, if they pushed the animal off the mountain and it didn't die, do you go after the animal and kill it? The question is this animal, is the atonement only achieved by the animal being killed as it's thrown off the mountain, or if it survives the fall off the mountain, you don't have to kill it, because obviously killing on Yom Kippur is a daraisa. Amalehem, he said, Ken Yovdu Kolevech Hashem. So shall be all the enemies of the Jewish people should be lost or destroyed this way. Again, he didn't answer the question, and the Gemara is going to explain why he doesn't answer questions directly in a moment. But the Brisa continues. Chachamim gave the answer to these questions. Chola, if the animal became sick, you put it on its shoulder, you could carry the animal. Chola, if the ish iti became sick, then you could appoint somebody to replace him. The chafoi, if the person pushed the animal off the mountain, he goes down and kills it. Again, there's not only a mitzvah to throw it off the mountain, the mitzvah is to have this animal killed. Shalu es Rabbi Eliezer, they asked other questions to Rabbi Eliezer. Mahu lo'olam haba. This person, Pliny Mahu lo'olam haba, they was a known person in their generation, and they asked them, is he going to olam haba? So the answer, the Amalei, so he said, Loishal Tune Elal Pliny, you only ask me about this person, is he getting olam haba? Ask me about somebody else. In other words, I don't know why they were asking him about a particular person in their time. Maybe he was a moiser or something. Is he getting olam haba? And he didn't want to answer it. Then they asked him other questions, like non-religious questions. If you're a shepherd and there's a lion attacked a sheep, is the shepherd permitted to save the sheep from the lion? Maybe it's the lion's food and you're not allowed to save it. You let the lion have it. You're only asking me about a sheep? Again, didn't answer the question. Then they asked the can you save the shepherd from the lion? If the lion is attacking a shepherd, can you save the shepherd? I don't know what the question is. You're only asking me on the shepherd. So these questions, the Tosfos explains that it has to do with David HaMelech and Uriah Achiti and Tanakh questions, and it was questions in a like a riddle form that they wanted answers for. But from the Gemara per se, and when the way Rashi interprets it, it's just plain questions that are secular questions. Then they asked them, Mamzer Mauli Yerush. Can a mamzer be Yerush's father? Mauli Yabim. can a mamzer be yibim? In other words, if a mamzer's brothers die, can he be miyabim the brother's wife? Mahu lost it as basically. Can you plaster your house without leaving anything zeichel amigdash, zeichel beis amigdash? Mahu lost it as kivrei. Can you plaster his caver? So he would answer always in a question in the other in with a question, but never answering these questions. So the Gemara says, "Loy mipnei shefligim b'devarim," not that he just wanted to push them off. Ela mipnei shaloi amadava shaloi shama mipi rabbi loilam. When he didn't hear it from his master, he was careful not to say something. If he didn't have the answer, or if his rebbeim didn't talk about it, even though technically he could have answered the question, he had this chumrah strictness not to say not to answer questions that he didn't hear his rebbe said. Perhaps I think because his rebbe was still alive, and this would be disrespectful. So if the rebbe didn't say it, he didn't want to answer the question. Then we're going to finish off to the Mishnah, and it's very easy. Shala isha chachama es Rabbi Eliezer. A woman who is very smart asked Rabbi Eliezer, Ma'acha shema'asa egel shavim ibnei ma'em musasim shavim. Why do we find by the Maaseh Egel that people didn't die the same way? Some people died in a plague, some people died by the sword, and some people died with dropsy. In other words, the Chumash doesn't tell you, gives you three types of ways people die, but everybody did the Egel the same way. Amaleh, instead of answering her, he said, Ein chachma isha el b'pelach. A woman's smartness is only with weaving. Smart women weave. All right, they shouldn't ask questions on. Not that she shouldn't ask questions in the Chumash, but he was telling her, "You're a smart lady, but your strength should be in weaving." I'm not sure what he meant with that, but again, a deflection and not answering the question. Itmar, but we learned Rabbi Levi explained it. Chadamar once said, Zibach bekitar, the ones that slaughtered animals and brought incense for the egel, Pasayef, they were killed with a sword. Kipe punishat, if they kissed or cleaned up the egel, Bemisa, they were death by the plague. Samach bilvavoy, but those that were happy didn't serve the egel. He droikain were killed with dropsy. Chadomar Eidim Bahasra, if there were witnesses and warned them, don't bow down to the egel, Messiah, that person was killed with the sword. Eidim Beloy Hasra, if there was witnesses with no warning, Bemisa, he got killed with the plague. Loy Eidim Beloy Hasra, if there was no witnesses and no warning, Behidorakain with dropsy. Rabbi Yehuda said, Shiftish Levi Loy Ovid Avodah Zarah. The Savior Levi did not do Avodah Zarah. Shenema Mayama Moshe Bashar Hamachne. Moshe stood in the camp, and he said, "Mi Lashem Elai." So the whole Shevet Levi did not do Avodah Zarah. They didn't participate at all for the Egel. So Yosef Ravina Kol Mashmaitza. Ravina sat and said over this teaching. Eisvei Bnei Rapapa Baraba LeRavina. So the kids of Rapapa Baraba asked Ravina, "How could you say the whole Shevet Levi did not do Avodah Zarah?" The pasuk praises Shevet Levi. Moshe Rabbeinu's blessing to Shevet Levi was that that they said they killed their own father and mother when it came time to the Egel, and Moshe said, "Mi Lashem Elai." These people came forth and they would kill their own father and mother. So there must have been people of Shevet Levi that did the Egel. So the Gemara says no. When Shevet Levi killed their father, it means Aviv Imam Yisrael. It means they killed their grandfather from their mother's side, who may have been a Yisrael. They didn't kill their father because their father did not do Avodah Zarah. Echav, when they said, the pasuk says that they killed their own brother, Echad Me'ima Yisrael. They killed their brother, their half brother, whose their shared mother was married to a Yisrael the first time around. Banav, they killed their own children, means they killed their grandkids, but they beat them Yisrael. If one of their grandkids married, their daughter married a Yisrael, so their grandkids was a Yisrael. So the Shevet Levi would have killed their own grandkids, but they were not from Shevet Levi; they were from other Shvatim. That's why the teaching of Rav Yehuda that Shiftei Shalevi Le'Avad Avodah Zarah still holds true. One more piece: the Keves also lied. There was a ram that took this Ish Iti out of the base of Migdash, and they put him on a ramp. And the reason why they put him on the ramp, because the crowds would have harassed him, pull his hair out to move faster. It wasn't Babylonian people that were doing this. Alexandrian Hoya. They were Alexandria people. It was the people of Eretz Yisrael had they did not like, they hated the Babylonian Jews, because when it came time to rebuild the second base of English, the Babylonian Jews, the ones that remained in Babylon, did not participate. So the ones that sweated it out to build the second temple hated the Babylonian Jews. So when anybody was doing anything wrong in the second base of English, they would call them Babylonians. But the Gemara says there wasn't Babylonian people that were doing things wrong. That, like, the Egyptian Jews were coming to the base of English during Yom Kippur. Perhaps maybe they wanted to go to the real base of Mikdash. They had their own base of Mikdash, we discussed, but they came to the base of Mikdash in Jerusalem. But they would harass the Ish Ite to get out of there, to move faster, to throw the animal off the mountain. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says it wasn't Babylonian that were harassing, Alexandrian Hoya. They were the Alexandrian people. God should give you serenity, because you made my mind serene, because I was always thinking there was Babylonian people, because Rabbi Yossi was from Babylon, and Rabbi Yehuda explained, no, it was Alexandrian people. Told it say, the final Gemara says, Tana, why were they telling him to get out of there? They were telling him, why are you delaying or walking so slow with the goat, and the sins of the generations are so much. So they were trying to push him to move a little faster, to get this goat off the mountain so that they could get atonement. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties.
Yes,
Baruch Hashem, we finished.
Thank you.
Fascinating Gemara. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good enough.
Good enough.
Good night.
Where did you leave off?
I left off by the Mishnah. The Mishnah on the bottom. On Samach Vav Amud Sheni. Okay?
Okay.
Yes, Samach.
66B. Okay. On 66B. Okay.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Okay.
66B.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, very good. Good
Yeah.
night.